So good morning, everyone. It's still morning where I'm at. Welcome to our Women in FinOps series. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Regina Schulte. You may also call me Gina. I'm a community advisor lead with the FinOps Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us. We are excited you're here. For those of you who may be joining for the first time, Women in FinOps is a special interest group or a SIG, and this is our 10th Women in FinOps series this year. Through our Women in FinOps series, we introduce. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute everyone. There we go. So as I was explaining, through our Women in FinOps series, are you guys getting feedback? I'm hearing somebody. Are you guys?
Hey, Gina, if you just want to make me co-host, I'll go ahead and handle that.
Okay, thank you, Stacy.
No problem.
So I have everyone muted. Okay, keep going. Through our Women in FinOps series, we introduce you to practitioners and other members of our community who we believe have a wonderful story, an inspiring story to share with you. So this is a space to learn more about each other's journey into FinOps, as well as hear personal growth stories. And just a reminder that this is not a place to talk about how women do FinOps, but rather a place for us to build some connections, as well as be inspired by the other women that we meet here. Just a reminder of our FinOps Foundation Code of Conduct, which is very important. We are here to contribute, respect others, be kind and inclusive. There's to be no sales pitches or sharing of confidential information. We do not allow bots, but we will be recording this session, as I already said, and then you will be able to find this recording out on our FinOps Foundation YouTube channel. Our agenda for today is to highlight our guest speaker, who I'm going to introduce to you shortly. I'm going to ask her some questions, and then we'll open it up for all of you to ask questions as well. And then we'll conclude today's session with me just touching on some ways for you to get more involved with the FinOps Foundation and announcing our last Women in FinOps speaker of 2023. So today, the FinOps Foundation is excited to welcome this morning our Women in FinOps speaker, Usha Ganesh. Usha is currently the director of the Cloud Business Office at GlobalPayments, which in June of 2021 was named a Fortune 500 company. Usha brings to her role with GlobalPayments her expertise built over 17 years, navigating the line between IT and finance in her various roles as a cost accountant, an IT business analyst, and a project portfolio manager. Usha collaborates across functional work streams to set standards and build technological efficiencies and governance in a complex multi-cloud environment. She's the company's first certified FinOps practitioner and has been very successful at setting up cloud community of practice and in building the cloud community at GlobalPayments. Outside of work, Usha believes in giving back to the community through fundraising and volunteering, and I'm going to let her tell you about that in a little bit. So welcome, Usha. Very happy to have you here.
Humbled and happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Ciao, meu amor. Ciao, meu amor.
My first question to you is a very simple question. Please tell us more about who Usha is outside of work. Where do you live? Tell us about your family, what you like to do.
So I live in Austin, Texas. Been here for about 23 years, so this is home. I have 2 children. One is a sophomore in college. He's doing pre-med and University of Texas, Austin. So he stays close to home. That makes the mom and me happy. My daughter, my younger one, she is a junior in high school, and she's looking to move forward in the world of STEM. So I'm excited to see how she's going to navigate that journey. Apart from that, our family as a whole, we love the outdoors a lot. So the few weeks in Texas that we do get to spend ideal.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Outdoor.
I think Chichi did a good job.
That's kind of when we end up going camping with friends and things like that. We love traveling. I've been dragging my kids around the world since they were 3 months old to now where they feel like any trip we go on, they have to be a part of. So we keep trying to do those trips. And during those trips, there's usually adventure activities involved, which could be starting from just hikes to going to whitewater rafting, and then it goes to canyon rappelling. And this past summer, we went and did this mountaineering / rock climbing kind of a thing. I think it's called gosh, I forget the name. It's a Mount Norgway in the Banff area. So they kind of do a guided tour, and they clip you on with harnesses, and they have you like do mountain climbing and rock climbing and stuff. So it was pretty cool. We were hanging on the side of it.
You're an adventurous family.
I would say so, yeah. There's a bunch of adrenaline junkies in my kids.
That's great. So my next question, Usha, is you transitioned from a cost accounting role into a project management role. Why did you make that move, and how did you go about it?
So I always call myself an accidental accountant. The reason I say that is growing up, I wanted to be an architect, like a building architect, right? And in my mom's side of the family, my sister and I were the oldest of the children. And my sister was the first to attend college, and I was right behind her. So we are just 2 years apart. So it's not like we are sisters, it's more friends. And we didn't really have much of a guiding hand or support. So we just did what we think was the right thing to do. There was not much of an expectation in terms of like, I need you to go finish your engineering degree, or I need you to go get into a professional management, nothing. They were like, do what you want to do, because anyway, after you finish your college, we're going to get you married off. So my standards were low, and I don't blame my parents for it, because that was the situation and that was the environment we were in, right? But then I kind of saw what my sister was doing, asked people around, and somebody told me, oh, to be an architect, you just need to have math. So you need to take option 3. And back in India, we get option A, B, C, D, and you take one of those options, and that's the path your life is set on. Option 3 happened to be accounting, economics, commerce, and math. And then I realized once I was into it that, oh, wait, I can't do my architecting degree with this. So then I ended up being in an accounting role and an accounting degree. Fast forward, I also did my MBA, both in finance and systems, and there starts my line between IT and finance. And I got married in 2000. I was working in India as a management consultant, implementing activity-based costing. And then after that, after I came to the US, I had an option of either being in an IT-based role or a finance role or accounting role. And for whatever reasons, I chose the accounting role. And so I had a career as a cost accountant at Dell for, I would say, at least 7 to 8 years. During that phase, I found myself signing up for projects that we have to liaison with IT, because I understood it better, because of my educational background and because of all the things that I had dealt with. And so I kind of felt like, okay, this is what makes me happy. I don't want to go through the routine of month and quarter and year end and have that kind of a career. So I spoke to my leaders, told them, hey, I think I want to be more in this liaison space, and I think that's where my strengths lie. So kind of work together with my leader to say, what kind of a role can I identify? What skills do I need to build? And how do I find the right roles and approach the people to sign up for those roles? Then I ended up going into project management, portfolio management kind of a role. So I started out saying, okay, I'll sign up for UAT testing, or I'll sign up for running the UAT testing. And then from there, picking it up to going, I'll do requirements gathering. And then from requirements gathering all the way to the end of the project. And so kind of went more into a project manager role. And then from there, went on to like managing portfolios.
Wonderful. Usha, I enjoyed this part of our conversation when we met a couple of weeks ago. So I want to be sure and ask you this question. Tell us what it was like for you when you felt you had hit your ceiling. What did it feel like? What were your next steps? What advice do you have for someone who feels that they have hit their ceiling?
I've felt it a few times. So I was working in a large Fortune 100 company, and while the ability to transfer different roles, like moving my career from an accounting role to a project manager, portfolio manager role, I was able to do that. It also was limited by how those organizations identify people for promotions. Initially, I was of the opinion that, okay, I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to do the best I can. And people will look at me and they'll say, Usha, you're doing such an awesome job. Here's your promotion. It didn't quite happen that way. But what I have always done is I've always sought out feedback. And in my mind, every feedback is good feedback as long as it is coming from the right place, in the right, it's coming from the right intention as to help you develop and grow, and not necessarily as a critique for the sake of critique, right? So you got to choose where it's, how it's delivered as well. And one of the things I've always done in my career is whenever I've found that a leader that I've been reporting to or that I've worked with is either retiring, leaving the company, or going to a different role, I would seek out some time with them. And I would say, hey, okay, now you're not bound by HR limitations or regulations. Please be completely candid with me and honest and tell me what is it that I need to be doing better to grow. And several times they've come out and just told me certain things that I was not expecting. And most of the times it's like, no, you're doing a great job, but this is more about networking. This is more about making a name known, etc. One thing that has stood out with me, and this was by Pat Brown, who's no longer with us anymore, but she was who I would call my work mom. And she told me when she was retiring, she said, Usha, you do a great job. You keep your head down all the time, and you think working hard and keeping your head down, people are going to recognize you. They don't do that. You have to be able to speak up for yourself. You have to be able to make it known to people that you're looking for opportunities, you're looking for growth, and you have to go out there and meet people and make it known, because nobody is going to be an advocate for you more than you are. And if you don't raise your voice and tell them this is what I'm interested in, how will they know? Or how will they even know what you're doing? So make it a point to call out and tell everybody that this is what I'm working on, and this is where I'm finding challenges, and how these are the challenges I'm going across, right? It's really hard, especially coming from a culture like an Asian culture where you're told, keep your head down, you're a woman, you're not supposed to be, proud, bold, whatever, you're supposed to be modest. It's really, really hard to come out of that shell, but you have to get to that uncomfortable space and push past it, and then you will start realizing it. The other thing I did, and I think this is something also you asked about, Regina, was in Dell, where I was working with, they say you have multiple tierings. Like back from when I was there, it was like, C1, C2, C3, and then you go to D1, D2, D3, whatever, being individual contributor levels, director levels, whatever. I was trying to go from a C2 to a C3. And I was finding that every time I have a performance assessment, I don't think I've had times where I've ever had a manager or leader come up to me and say, you didn't do a good enough job. It was always, you did such an amazing job. You knocked it out of the park. Keep doing what you're doing. And my question again would be, okay, what do I need to do better? Because obviously I'm doing everything right, but I'm not doing it right enough for you to think that I'm doing such an amazing job that you want to give me a promotion. And several times it's a factor of, you're pitted among your own other peers. There's leaders fighting for their own people and saying, this person needs a promotion over that person, right? So that's the network part of it. Everybody needs to know, not just your immediate manager, but their peers needs to know who you are, what you're doing, what you're working on. And where that visibility comes from is taking special projects on, taking ERG roles, leadership roles, and things not directly related to your work, but then people know your name. Second part of what I did was I looked at the HR definitions for what a C2 role is and what a C3 role is. And then I set up some time with my VP and I said, hey, I just want to go over this with you. And I showed him, this is what I see in HR for a C3. This is what I see in HR for a C2. Would you agree? And he was like, yep. And then I switched over to, this is what I'm doing right now. And this is how it relates to a C3 role. And thereby you tell me if I'm already performing at a higher level, at the level that is expected of a C3, what more do I need to do, or what do I need to do to get it officially called out as a promotion? So those were things I kind of, talking to mentors, talking to other team members that I've seen succeed, found out and gone with it. But yeah, that's kind of a couple of the things that I have learned over the years. One key other thing that I would say is never say no to any opportunities that come by without giving it a second thought, right? There have been opportunities that I've thought like, no, I don't want to be doing that. And then realized like 6 months or 7 years, 7 months down the line, I'm like, oh, if I had taken that, this would have happened and I would have had these things happening for me. So then I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I'm never going to say I'm only going to stick down this path, because when you box yourself, you're not opening yourself to the opportunities and growth that you can get.
Great advice, Usha. And before I move on to the questions I have, Lindsay Brady just posted a great question in the chat that's related. So I want to ask that. She asked, do you feel your ability to achieve and overperform became the new standard for how you were graded versus your performance versus the company standard?
I love that question, Lindsay. Thank you so
It's a
much.
great question.
And
So I have to ask
absolutely,
it now.
right? Because now they're like, oh yeah, she always overperforms. And then now it's like, oh, you didn't perform as much this quarter over the previous quarter, then you're dinged for it, right? And absolutely. And also the other thing I've seen is I used to be the kind that I finish my stuff really fast. I just tend to work fast. I'm blessed with that ability. But at the same time, once I finish it, I would be the one raising my hand and going, I'm finished. Can I do something else? Can I take on something else? And in the process, I end up overloading my plate, which leaves me lesser time for myself, for my family, for taking on all the special projects that I talked about, right? And so I've deliberately tried to stop myself from doing that, not from overperforming, but from not just saying, oh, this comes easy to me. They don't need to know I worked on something for 2 hours, which might have taken somebody else 8 hours to do, right? I believe in working smarter, not working harder. And they don't need to know that, but they need to know what the challenges were. And this is an advice I recently gave one of my team members as well, is unless you come and tell me what the process was in getting something done, what your challenges were in getting something done, I would just assume, oh, I gave this work to so-and-so. They came back to me in 1 week and they got it done. So it must have been easy. And I would not have known the nitty-gritty between how many meetings they had to set up, how many people they had to convince, how many challenges they had to overcome to get that work done. So I make sure that I call out to my leadership, hey, I know I got this work done, but here are the lessons learned, and here's the challenges that I saw that I had to deal with. So no, it was not easy, but I got it done. So it sets the expectations that you are working hard to get the results. And it's not just, oh, she just performs better, so let's just keep her at that level. I hope that helps, Lindsay.
Yeah, great response. One thing you didn't touch on that I really liked when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I've thought about it actually and put it in play in the last couple of weeks, is what you do when you are being given feedback. You talked about how it's important to just remain silent.
Yeah, so one of those sessions where I sought feedback, right? And sometimes I deliberately try to seek feedback from people I feel, I get the feeling that they don't like me as much. And from an official capacity, this is nothing personal, right? One of the things I learned as a project manager is don't take anything personal. People have their own things to do. They have their own worries to take care of. They're not out to get you. Everybody's just trying to do a great job. And I reached out deliberately to this person and I said, hey, can you tell me what I need to be doing? I like to see where you are and I like to get where you are. Can you please tell me feedback from your personal experiences of having interacted with me, what I need to do? And I realized what I was doing is the minute he started giving me some feedback, I was trying to justify, right? He was like, oh, I've seen you do this. I'm like, yeah, but that was not my role. Or that was not what I was supposed to do. This is what I was supposed to do. My immediate reaction was that. And he said, Usha, just stop. I'm not trying to pinpoint mistakes. I'm really trying to give you feedback from my perspective of what I see without understanding what you're going through. So just listen. And if you have questions, let's have a follow-up session a week later and you can present your opinion or view of it, but just listen. And so that's something I've started doing is when people give me feedback, our gut reaction is to defend ourselves. Our gut reaction is to say, no, that's not right, to correct them, to say your perception of me is wrong. But we are the ones going and asking them for feedback in the first place. So one thing I've started doing is when somebody's giving feedback, just take it in, just listen, write it down if needed. If there's something truly completely out of whack, we can always go back to them and clarify it. But just take it in and listen, because the more we listen, the more forthcoming they will be in providing you the feedback. If they start seeing that we're being defensive, they're going to be like, yeah, maybe I just don't want to tell her this. And so that's something I've just tried to do. And in fact, I have a session set up for early November when I go to Columbus, where I've reached out to one of the leaders in my team that I feel our relationship could be improved. So I reached out and I said, please bring it on. I don't care how hard hitting it is going to be. Just tell me so that I can improve. The idea here is to improve, right? So that's something I've been trying to work on really. And I find that it's been pretty helpful in actually getting feedback, because most of the feedback I get is, you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. And that does not help at all. I try to ask for open-ended questions, and I struggle with that. So it's not like something I can say, oh, this is exactly how you do it. I struggle with that too. I'm trying to ask more open-ended questions, and I try to just stay quiet and listen.
Great advice. I had to have you talk about that because I loved it when we talked about it before. Usha, can you tell us about the path you took to a directorship in the cloud business office at Global Payments?
Yeah, so I enjoyed working at Dell, right? Mainly because Dell was one of the few companies where back in, I think when I was in 2008, I had my second child and I was having issues taking care of her. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to quit my job. I'm going to stay home, be a stay-at-home mom, take care of her. She needs me. And my work mom at that time, she said, Usha, I don't want you to quit completely. Why don't you work part-time from home? I know and trust you to work. And I know you'll be honest in how you work and how much time you put in. I don't care when you work as long as you get the work done. This was back in 2008 when Dell was almost known as a sweatshop, right? And she said, just get it done. I don't want to lose you. So just stay home, take care of your family, work from home. I tried that for 3 months, but working 6 hours a day and taking care of a 9-month-old infant is more than 2 full-time jobs. So three months later, I gave up on that. Then I went to Apple, I worked there for 2 years, and I've kind of felt like I wanted to go back to the Dell space because it afforded me a lot work-life balance. My husband didn't have the same flexibility, and I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this. I had work-life balance with Dell. I was there for every single event for my kids, as much as I could. And then I was able to focus on my work too. Yeah, I had to pump the brakes a little bit on how fast I would like to accelerate in my career, but that was a choice I deliberately made. But I also tried to get a breadth of experience in the meantime. Now my kids are much older, and I was having this conversation with my husband. It's like, I would really like to push on my career now. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I left Dell. I tried to move up to a different role within Dell, but that was quite not happening. And I was thinking, okay, I'm just going, one of my managers, in fact, gave me an advice. She said, Usha, leave, because that's the only way you're going to get a bump in your salary. That's the only way you're going to be able to add more experience rather than just have one full company in your entire career. So I took that advice. I went to a different company, which was NetSpend. I enjoyed working there. But unfortunately, NetSpend was being divested from Global Payments. And I was kind of in the mentorship program. And I was having my first mentorship conversation with this executive VP. And she was asking me, questions like you were asking me, tell me about your journey, what your aspirations, what do you want to do? And I was telling her how, my struggles have been with trying to go to the next level and hitting the glass ceiling and things like that. And she goes, okay, so you have an IT background, kind of, not technical, but you know the IT side of the business. You can talk their language, and you're on the accounting, finance side of the business, and you know that as well. But you are a project manager. Would you want to continue in the project portfolio management role? And this is where my previous comment comes through. And I said, I am not limiting myself to just project manager or portfolio manager. I am open to anything. And that's a lesson I've learned. So what she said was, I have a role that might be perfect for you. It is a director role in the cloud business office. We need somebody with an IT understanding. We need somebody with finance understanding and be able to set processes and governance and standards in place. And I think you'll be perfect for that role. That's kind of how I landed in the cloud space. My experiences with cloud kind of started out when I was in the cost accounting role, where I was asked to start booking accounting for subscription-based services for Adobe and Office 365. And I remember just trying to put some grasp the concept around like, how are we supposed to do that? It's subscription. It's like a magazine subscription. How am I supposed to know when they signed up for it, when they did not sign up for it? How are we supposed to track it? So it was quite exciting to figure out all of those complexities. And so that kind of, I would say, just opened a sliver of a window into that cloud space for me. And so over the time, I've been kind of like been picking up bits and pieces here. The other part was, funnily enough, Dell had a project, they called it a go-to-market project, where they said, we're going to reach out to small and medium businesses, and we're going to give them a tiered approach to server space. When they are small, they can just use this much of server space. When they're growing big enough, they can add another tiering, and then they can add more as they grow higher, so they can scale up. This was not the cloud. This was still on-prem, but it's kind of, that's the same concept that was coming through, right? And this was a long time ago. So it's just funny enough for me now, I think back and like, oh, wait, that's what they were trying to do. And all of that did contribute into me getting into this role, because the questions were like, do you even have an awareness of what's happening? And so I was able to bring up some of this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Usha, you have an MBA and you have several certifications. What have those certifications meant to you, and why did you pursue additional certifications since you already had an MBA?
So when I got into my project manager role, it felt like common sense. It is common sense, right? You just need to be more organized. You need to be able to collaborate. You need to be putting a timeline together. You need to be able to identify your risks. You need to be able to manage those risks. You need to deliver within cost, time, and quality. It's pretty much common sense. And I was in that role, starting from that data analyst level on to managing bigger projects. And what I've seen is, when you try to look for roles outside, they don't know who you are. They don't know that you have learned all this on the go and that you perform really well. Having that certification was just adding a credibility to it, to say like, hey, look, I have a certification. This company, this organization, the PMI organization says, I know what I'm doing. Even though I was already doing project management for 7 years before I got my PMP certification, it was when I was starting to look for other roles that I realized, wait, most of these job descriptions, they ask for a certification. And even though I know everything there is to know about it, having that certification just gets me the foot in the door. In many cases, it was credibility. Similarly for the FinOps certification, right? While I do want to work towards my FinOps professional certification, that's kind of where I'm going with it. I did realize that being new to my role, I've only been in this role for 1.5 years now, being new to this role, and I'm working with a lot of people who have depth of experience in the cloud. And for me to go tell them, hey, you need to get your tagging in order. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to do all of this analytics. We are not able to go do more governance, things like that. For them to sit up and listen, I've seen that me telling them I have the FinOps certificate, FinOps practitioner certification, makes them think like, oh, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. And I think it definitely adds a credibility there. I'm not saying it is just for the credibility aspect of it. There are things I learned during the certification that's more than just common sense. And there is definitely a technical aspect to it that is layered on as well. I just feel like, having that continuing education also shows that you are willing to grow, you are willing to improve, and you are willing to learn to get where it needs to go. And I'm still continuing to do that. Like right now I'm thinking about like, oh, I've seen some of the FinOps practitioners coming from the finance side. They all have an AWS basic certification. They have a Google Cloud certification. I'm like, I want to do that. So I'm trying to kind of add that.
Sure. Thank you. How important has mentorship and sponsorship meant to you throughout your career? And what is the difference between the two to you?
I've definitely been involved in mentorship programs, both as a mentor and a mentee, whenever I've had the opportunity. Of course, as going as a mentor, I've always approached it as like, I don't know what I can teach you, but all I can do is share my experiences and see if I can coach you towards making those decisions yourself. And I know it's part of the imposter syndrome in me, and I try to work on it and be aware of it. But as a mentor, I've been enrolled in the mentorship programs throughout my career, and I've definitely reached out to them. The good thing about having the mentor is I want to try to find somebody who's not directly in my leadership line. So when I reach out to them, not only do I get different perspectives of how different areas of the company or different companies work with, but the other part of it is where I can go approach them and talk to them without the fear of it getting back to my own leadership chain. And I can be vulnerable with them, right? I can tell them, please help me. This is where I'm struggling with. Versus when I go to my own leadership and say, hey, I'm struggling with this and I need some help with this. That could be seen as something to ding me on my personal assessment.
Great advice.
And I don't want that. From a sponsorship perspective, this really helped me when I was trying to move into that project management, portfolio management role. Is part of that whole network thing that I talked about. Not only does your manager or your leadership know who you are, but their peers need to know about you so that they can vouch for you as well, right? So when I had that conversation with my VP and I showed him, hey, this is C2 versus C3. This is where I'm already performing. What do I need to do? He said, start talking, networking, and having one-on-ones with my peers. So one of them I had reached out to and I was having a conversation with him, and he was very candid. He was very open and willing to work with me. And he asked me, what exactly do you want to do? And I told him my aspirations and where I want to be working in and which particular group or department. And it so happened, I think I was on vacation that day, and I got a call from my leader, and he said, hey, you heard the Dell and EMC merger is going to happen, right? And I said, yeah. Well, we're going to have 12 work streams being built out for that. And we are trying to identify people who can lead those work streams. And your name was thrown on the table today. Would you be interested? And I mean, that is an amazing opportunity, right? Experience of a lifetime to do that. It's like one of the biggest acquisitions that had ever happened in the technology side. And for me to be able to work on that and lead a work stream was amazing. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Who did you, thank you for recommending. He's like, I did not. It was this other guy who you met with and had a one-on-one with who threw your name because he said, oh, I know Usha is interested in this kind of a role and I think she'll be perfect for it.
Right.
So that's the sponsorship part of it, right? Like somebody willing to talk for you, somebody willing to throw your name out there and push for you versus somebody just giving you an advice or somebody just helping you figure out your options and your career path. So that I think is the difference between the sponsorship versus the mentorship, somebody willing to go to bat for you. And for you to get that, you have to be able to build the relationship. You have to show the credibility that they can rely on you and that you're only going to enhance their reputation if they recommend you versus be a mark on their reputation by saying, oh my God, he referred this person or she referred this person and she turned out to be a dud. Like you don't want that coming back to them.
As women in technology, we especially need to have mentors and sponsors, but also be mentors and sponsors. Very important. I have two more questions for you, and then we'll open things up to anyone else who might like to ask you something, but this is my favorite question. So outside of work, you believe very strongly in giving back to the community. And in the bio we have from you, you included a quote that I'd like to share. And that quote is, kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. Tell us a little bit about how you give back and what you're giving back gives back to you.
Yeah, that's something close to my heart. And I keep telling my kids all the time, I don't care if you grow up to be a CEO of a big company. I don't care if you're an extremely successful doctor or whatever my son chooses to be, right? If you're not a decent human being, if you're not a kind human being who gives, then I haven't done my job as a parent. I got this from my parents because growing up, I've seen them contribute, not necessarily through pure volunteering, but I've seen them help out people who need help. My dad passed away in 2014, and I remember a lot of people came and approached us at his funeral, and they were like, "Oh my God, your dad changed my life." And these are people who have been completely like way more successful than my dad ever was. And for somebody at that level to come and tell me I was struggling And your dad gave me the right contacts and the right resources to reach out to, and he helped me get to where I am today. And not just one person, but 2 or 3 of them coming and telling me that. It's so inspiring. Like, you want to leave your mark on the world, be it a small mark, be it, and it's like, you go camping and it's like, leave the park a better place than it was when you found it. So like, pick up any trash. That's the same thing with the world. Leave the world a better place than how you found it, right? My family, we've been like volunteer. I drag my kids into volunteering all the time. There's an organization here called, it used to be called Little Helping Hands. It's called Generation Serve now. It focuses on families volunteering together, helping build that sense of community, helping build that sense of giving back to the community. So they do things like, clean up a park, and they don't make it a big thing. They do things like little kids, 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds are like picking up twigs and putting them in a trash can, which is still them contributing in their own way, but it's about building that sense of giving, right? Building that sense of volunteership. It's grown now to be, I think it's across 2 or 3 cities now. And my daughter is actually on their teen advisory board now, because she's been involved in so much all the time that we keep pulling her back into those events. Another one that I was involved with is called Sankarai Foundation. It is from my hometown. And I had gone there taking my grandma for a surgery. They have a Robin Hood kind of scheme where people who can afford to pay for the surgeries pay for it. And they take a portion of that margin, and they do free surgeries, clinics, and checkups for people who cannot afford it. So they actually do mobile clinics. They go into the villages, they go into the remote areas where there's no hospital presence, and they actually do those surgeries and cleanups and things for those people there. And so when I first went there, they had a bunch of like, eye donation forms. And so I would go with like 100, 150 eye donation forms in my backpack in my 12th grade. And I would emotionally blackmail all of my relatives and friends into signing eye donation forms. And mind you, in the Hindu culture, because we believe big in reincarnation and things like that, they believe that you should not donate any of your body parts, because God forbid you may be born blind or whatever. I'm not saying that's what they say, but that's some of my uncles used to say that. And I would tell them, like, you could still live on, and you could still be seeing the world even after you're gone, right? Because it's your eyes being given, you're giving the eyesight to somebody. And from there, I found out they have a local chapter in Austin. And so now we've been regularly doing fundraising for hospitals, more hospitals, doing local volunteership, etc., as well in here. And it's kind of, it selfishly also makes me feel like I'm doing something better for the rest of the world than just going along, earning monies, building material things, and then just living my life.
Wonderful. We need more Ushas in the world. Thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Last question before I open it up to the audience is, what's it been like working with the FinOps community, and how has it supported you in your FinOps Foundation community, and how has it supported you in your FinOps journey?
I would say it's like family, I would say, at least to me, because when I came into this role, I was completely blindsided, right? I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. I would say the first 3 months, I was like just learning, trying to figure out things. And once I found the foundation, I can tell you this at least once a week that I go into the Slack channel looking for questions that other people have asked, I've answered, building connections, reaching out to people. I've made a good few friends as well, I would say, and Rachel's right there. She is the first person I reached out to because I found out there's somebody from the FinOps Foundation in Austin. So I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm new to this. How does this work? Can you guys give me some insight? Can you kind of help me figure it out? And she was so welcoming. And then they set up the whole Austin meetup. I got to meet more people, found out about the foundation, joined the foundation. And now I contribute, like I signed up for 3 working groups. Please don't do that. Because I essentially don't have the time to do that. And I'm contributing only on one. I'm just a silent person on the other 2. I don't have the time to go to those. I didn't realize how much of effort it was, right? So I'm part of a working group. I also signed up to be a meetup organizer since Josh, who was the meetup organizer earlier, is on the vendor side now, and he cannot lead it. But I did love that we were able to meet up as an Austin community and build more on those connections and have more of those valid conversations. So I am signed up as a meetup organizer as well. So I just hope to contribute how much ever I can and learn more, because I absolutely learn a lot more from this community, and thank you for that.
Thank you. And I'm thrilled to be working with you on meetups. So I look forward to many more. That's all.
And then I should mention, when I came to the FinOps X, it felt like I was meeting friends because I've met them either through virtual chats or even just a Slack channel. And so like I remember meeting Deanna and talking about like, the women's working group there. And I think we had a long conversation on that ship, just chatting about like women and how we need to build more and empower more. And it just feels like you've come, like I said, you've just come to your family. People understand what you're doing and are kind of doing the same thing and building each other up.
I love it. I love Rachel's comment. My husband was like, yes, go talk about FinOps with people who don't want you to talk. Stop talking about FinOps. That's great. That's perfect. So listen, let's
Yeah, my
open
sister keeps
things.
sending me people who are in finance. She's like, hey, you're in finance, right? This person's looking for a role. I'm like, no, I'm not in finance.
So everyone, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask Usha questions, or if you're more comfortable, throw your questions in chat. But let's ask her things while we've got her attention. This has been great, Usha. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Usha. Actually, two, if that's okay. I'll try to be quick.
Would you introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
My name is Dominique. I go by Dom. I actually just started at NetSpin as a compliance analyst, and I had the pleasure of meeting you. I want to say back in March when we had the meetup at the actual location. So it's good to see you virtually again.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned about the mentorship program, and I know I mentioned that I just started, but is that like a formal program that they have at NetSpin, or is that something that you sought out on your own?
It was, well, there are formal and informal ones too, right? So NetSpin was part of Global Payments, and Global Payments does have a mentorship program that you can sign up for. But it doesn't have to be something that's a formal program, right? You can just approach people on the side and say, hey, I really like how you do your things, and I really like seeing the way you handle things. Would you mind mentoring me? And most people are very, very happy to do that. I actually have a few informal mentors that I just meet up with once in a while. It's nothing on a formal schedule. These are people that I've seen and been inspired by. There's women leaders that I have seen that I've wanted to be in those kind of roles and do things that they are doing. I also have men who are mentors, right? And I wouldn't say like, just because I'm a woman, I'm only going to look at women. There's actually one SVP at Dell who really helped me through that final phase of like breaking that ceiling and doing the things that I talked about. And I kind of still keep in connection with him. I wouldn't say I talk to him as often as I want to, but I know he's Jewish, so I would just reach out to him and like wish him for Happy Hanukkah or something of that sort. Just keep in touch with him. And then if I really do want to have a conversation, I say, hey, would you have like 15-20 minutes of time? Can I come talk to you? But one thing I would advise from a mentee perspective is that is time that they are sharing with you that could be done they could be doing something else, either for themselves or for the work or whatever, right? So when you are going into that mentorship relationship or that conversation, make sure you bring something to the table in terms of, this is what I'm looking for, this is my goal, and this is my pathway. And say, for example, like I have given mentees, like I've had mentees who come to me and say, hey, I'm really struggling with professional speaking in like, presenting, executive presentations, things like that. How do you go about like, doing this? What is your approach? Things like that. I have given them links to documents that I have seen that I have found useful. And make sure that you do look at that. Like they've spent the time to source that for you and give it to you. Make sure you read up and you come back and say, provide the feedback on it to show how it helped you or did not help you or what it is. So it's a two-way relationship, but you do have to solicit it, and you don't have to go through a formal process if that helps, Tom.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, you mentioned the importance of not boxing yourself in and pigeonholing yourself in your career. How do you balance, because I am determined to eventually transition into the cloud. That's a career goal of mine, but I feel like I'm very just tunnel vision when it comes to that. So how do you, I guess, leave yourself open and go with the flow when it comes to your career, but also keep that determination of what you really want to do?
A lot of the things is right time at the right place, right? Um, and go with the flow, especially when it is coming from a leadership that you trust. And if they say, I think this is the role that you need to take, you don't know all of the reasonings behind it. They might not tell you all of the reasonings. They might be trying to do some play at a higher level, saying, if I move this person here and if I do that person, then I can help her build her role up. But if you shut down that process and that gate right there, they're not going to be able to help you. So one thing I would say, it's really hard to make the decision, right? But just be open to it, in the sense, don't say an immediate no. Somebody approaches you and says, hey, Dom, I have this role for you. Would you be interested in looking at it? You don't have to say yes or no immediately in the next 5 minutes. You can ask for more details. You can say, can I think about it? And can I ask more questions and I can get back to you? They're not going to fault you for that. So that's something you could try and do. And at the same time, you could also reach out to your mentors and talk to them and see if that helps. And one thing I can do, Dom, I don't know if you already have a contact, but I do have a good friend in NetSpend who I think would be a good person to talk to. So I can send you that contact separately.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Usha.
Sure.
A question that's been posted in the chat, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Yashima has asked, she is a law grad and has no idea where or how to even get into FinOps. So she's looking for some advice.
This is a tough one, right? I mean, but the thing is with FinOps, when you talk to people, what I've seen is there's people from all walks of life. And I think Ashley has a answer for that. Please go ahead, Ashley.
Ashley, like to jump in on this one.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I mean, like law degree, like procurement is probably like right up your alley. Like, you know, get really familiar with procurement, contract language. I can't tell you how many times we pulled in a lawyer to understand that stuff. So yeah, procurement's a good spot to lean into. Oh, I had something else tip of my tongue, but study up on mergers and acquisitions. That's what I was going to say. That's another area that having a law degree is really critical. So I would look into those type of areas. And when you're out there looking for maybe your first job, start with something that's like a M&A analyst, and you'll be a core integrated with the FinOps team, like very quickly in that sense.
Yeah, and now we have those FinOps certified professional certifications too. So I think that would be a good add to your credibility too.
Yeah, actually, we just had a session. We have a educational series called FinOps B, and we had a session last month, a couple of weeks ago, on what is FinOps. We have a session coming up mid-November on how to get into FinOps. So this would be a great session for you to attend. Watch our events page, events.finops.org, for when we open that up for registration. But I'm also going to, if you want to message me your contact information, I can also let you know when that opens up. Ashley, do you want to just touch quickly on the book, the link you posted on the mentoring book?
Yeah, I know I've shared this a couple times. We've had the Women FinOps series. So found this book. It's really helpful. It taught me a lot about like the different types of mentoring. I think in our minds, we think it has to be so formal and agreed upon. And there's like in the book, I think it lists out like 12 different types of mentorship. So that was really helpful to understand. And then talks through like if you are a mentor, like what your responsibilities should be towards a mentee and vice versa. So it's a thin book. It's a quick read. So I always think it's a good one to check out.
Thanks, Ashley. Is it Ajit? You have your hand up?
Yeah, good afternoon. So this is not a question, more like I just want to say a few things. So I met, Usha and I are part of this, a working group, and then we met in person at FinOps X back in June, July. And I really like hearing your story. And I would just want to say this, I think you did a great job helping, influencing, and also motivating a lot of people. And if I could say one thing to add to it, I'll say keep knocking. When the door doesn't open, go to the next one and keep knocking. Good job.
Thanks, Ivy. It's very sweet of you.
Who's next? Who would like to ask a question? Anybody else? Anybody else got their hand up? Bindu.
Ben,
you-
we can't hear you.
There you go.
Now, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I'm good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Usha. Thank you so much. It was very interesting. I would like to know, you talked about, navigating your path and some of the challenges. I also want to know some of the risk and vulnerabilities that you have to show to your mentor or to your, cross-functional VP or such. And how did you navigate that?
So from the vulnerability perspective, right? So there have been situations like be it people management, and just even navigating my own personal individual contributor roles. You have to be in a trustful relationship, establish the trust, and reach out to people who are genuinely interested in helping out, right? In my case, I can think of two different mentor relationships. One's the executive VP at Dell that I was mentioning, and the other in my current company, who I reach out to and talk about my struggles, mainly because these are people that I see in those specific areas seem to have a handle on things, seem to know how to deal with it. And I've gone and told them like, hey, this is something I'm struggling with, and I'm hoping you can give me some guidance and just lay it on the table. The one thing I would say is go in with the mentality of wanting to learn from them. Because I think for me, that learning aspect is huge, because it's not just, and I don't know if it's being a second child or middle child syndrome, but I learn from not just my mistakes, I also learn from my sister's mistakes. So I see things that she's done, and I'd be like, oh, wait, she did this and she got into trouble for this, or this happened, and I don't want to be doing that. So I think just going with that learning mentality and being able to just be open and honest about it, to say that this is my struggle and this is where I need help with. And people are usually willing to help.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It was a good session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Usha. I think that's going to be our last question. I've got some other things to share with everybody. So if everyone's good, I think we'll move on. Thank you, Usha.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I hope this was a little bit helpful for anybody.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful. So just to wrap things up, I just want to say the FinOps Foundation is always looking for talented speakers for our local events, such as meetups and roadshows. So if you're willing to share your FinOps knowledge and expertise, please go to our events.finops.org and click on our Submit Speaker Proposal form, fill it out, and then what happens is your name's placed on a list. So when we're looking for speakers in your local area, we know you're interested, and we'll reach out to you. Oh, sorry about that. So we hope, if you're not already, that you'll get more involved with our FinOps Foundation community. There's so many ways to be involved. If you're interested in helping others or getting help from others, here are some of the opportunities that we have within the community. We host monthly mini summits. We have local meetups and roadshows. We have working groups and SIGs, special interest groups like this one. We have the ambassador program. We have our technical advisory council, or TAC. We have our governing board leadership positions and FinOps professional or persona-based training. So we hope, if you're not already involved or would like to get more involved, you'll check out these opportunities and become part of this really amazing community. Our next Women in FinOps speaker, and she'll actually be our last Women in FinOps speaker of 2023, is Tammy Burnett. Tammy is a senior IT manager at Shell Information Technology International, and she'll be joining us on November 19th. I've met with Tammy. She's great. You'll enjoy what she has to share. So that event is open for registration. So please go to events.finops.org to register. And then lastly, just a huge thank you to you, Usha. This has been wonderful. Really, really enjoyed it. You've shared some really valuable information. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else who joined. We're very appreciative. Hope to see you at our next Women in FinOps event on the 19th. And have a great day.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to finops.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.